Okay, but Rabbi side, we're continuing the Sikha we started last week. Oh, they need to go to the back of the show and then make a left. Okay, so we're starting.
Go upstairs. I have no idea.
Okay, no.
David, upstairs is better. I think over there was a problem. David, don't go upstairs. I think it's broken over here. Take him upstairs. Upstairs, there's two normal bathrooms. I don't know if it's working over there.
Another one, the other one over here.
Another one. Oh.
Sorry.
Take it.
Okay, let's learn.
I heard they're coming to get you.
Siv Dalid. So the Rebbe, just to give a kitzer of what we learned until this point, was the Shteta is azay. The Siyam of the Rambam, the Rebbe asked the question, the last Perek of the Rambam, Perek Yud Beis, seems to be completely extra. It doesn't belong in Sefer Hayad. Why? Because the last Perek is a description of what the world will look like when Moshiach comes. Okay? It's a beautiful inyan, but the Rambam is a Sefer Halachas. Why would the Rambam talk about the future and just describing what's going to happen if it's not Negeya to Halacha? So the Rebbe begins saying that we could say it is Negeya Halacha. How? Because there's a mitzvah or a chiyuv to believe in the coming of Mashiach. You have to know what you're believing in. I believe in Mashiach. What do I believe in? So the Rambam is giving you the basic details of what Mashiach consists of in order to know what you're believing in. And the main point is, what taka is Mashiach? A time period that will be able to be Mekayim, Torah, Mitzvahs, B'Shleimus. Okay, but the Rebbe is not satisfied with that point, because if that's the case, then the description that the Rambam speaks about, Lasad Lavai, is not really the main point. That is just to enable to fulfill Mitzvahs, B'Shleimus. But the Rambam doesn't describe other details that are negayah to other mitzvahs, what is going to make it possible for you to fulfill a mitzvah. The Rambam doesn't describe, well, if you're going to want to have an esrig, he's going to tell you how to plant a tree, and he's going to give you lessons of how you plant the tree and how you grow the esrig tree. The Rambam doesn't get into such details, right? So over here as well, why is the Rambam getting into all these details about the description of Lasad Lavai? Then we learned in Sif Dalet a bunch of different questions about what the Rambam says. Let's start, Sif Dalet. So I think I mentioned last week, just giving you a heads up. This is a Tifa Sikha, very deep Sikha. We'll try our best. Okay? You have to stay to help me out. Okay. Okay, so the Rebbe is going to give a lengthy... Is everyone okay? It's a phone. It's a phone. Okay. The Rebbe is going to give a lengthy introduction here, and we'll understand what this Yediyah and the Eibishter means. So we first need to explain a basic point. Sif Dalet. Sha'gader the mitzvah Yediyas Hashem, that what is the definition of the mitzvah? The first mitzvah in the Torah, which we read in this past Shabbos, Anochi Havai Lekecha, the mitzvah of Leida Sheyesh Motzi Rishon. What is the gather of this mitzvah? It's not just to know that Hashem exists. The Mekiv Shekol Aged the mitzvah zu, because you could only give a mitzvah shaykh rak lachrei hayidiyah sheyesh lekam mitzvah mitzvah. It's impossible to give a mitzvah if you don't first believe that there's a commander that is telling you to do this mitzvah. Okay, so now you're giving me a mitzvah to believe in Hashem. So if I'm receiving this mitzvah, so that means that I believe that there is the Eibishter exists. So, and then the mitzvah is to believe that he exists. So what's going on? If the person doesn't believe that the Eibishter exists, so then there's no concept of mitzvah. So who are we talking to? Elamai, he does believe that there's a commander, and I want to know what that commander is commanding me to do, so then I know that he exists. So the mitzvah is that he exists. That's the question. That's the fundamental question that the Barbanel and others ask. So here, the Rebbe brings in the quote of the Barbanel. Harei al yediyah zu gufe, to know the fact that Hashem exists, lo yitachel lo mishum mitzvah. That can't be referred to as a mitzvah. Ubelashna Barbanel, when the Barbanel speaks about this, he says as follows. Kashanani achamunis mitzias akel mitzvah. The moment we accept the fact that believing in Hashem is a mitzvah, so kvar naniach. So that means he also already accepted as a fact. And munas mitzias akel You believe that the Eibishter exists before you're fulfilling the mitzvah to believe that he exists. So what is the mitzvah? Okay, so now, what does it Barbanel explain? When the Rambam says the first mitzvah is to know that Hashem exists. So the Barbanel explains there, and the Tzemach Tzedek brings this also in Derech Mitzvah, and it's explained in Chassidus. HaMitzvah harishayna hishenamin, that we should have the faith or belief in Hashem, the Eibishter. Shahalaka baruchu shekvar yadainu shehu nimtza, the Eibishter, that we already know that he exists. Mitziyusai hi hayeser rishain v'hayeser shalem asher b'chol hametzias. He is the very first entity that exists. There's nothing before him, and he is the most perfect and the greatest existence. Kihu, and what's the Maila, what's the Shleimus of the Eibishter? So the Barbanel says 2 points. Kihu einet tzarich b'mitzias l'zulasai. The Eibishter does not rely on any existence outside of him. V'chol mashet zulasai, and everything that's outside of the Eibishter that exists, tzarich b'mitziusai elav chula, relies on Hashem for its existence. That's the Shleimus of the Eibishter's existence. 2 details that Barbanel points out. Okay, now the Rebbe explains that where do you see this in the words of the Rambam? The first halach of the Rambam, you say this, so where is what the Barbanel is saying in the words of the Rambam? So the Rebbe explains. The Rambam says, Shah mitzvah hi loy rak sheyesh alika b'chlal kiyim sheyesh motzi rishain and v'hu mamtzi kol nimtza. And then the Rambam adds u'maisif v'chol nimtzayim chulu nimtzu ela ma'mitisi motzai. The Eibishter being a mitisi motzai is the source of everything that's created. So if you pay close attention to the words of the Rambam, you see the Rambam doesn't just simply say leida sheyeshem alaka, which is the lashon that the Rambam says, quoted before in the Sefer HaMitzvahs, where he writes bekitzer what the mitzvah is. But when the Rambam in Sefer HaYad describes how you fulfill the mitzvah, here the Rambam gives the details. What are the details? So based on what Barbanel says, we can explain the words of the Rambam as follows. Shekavanose beisafazu hilahadgish shekol majaz zulasai tzarich b'mitzias elov. Okay, so take a look again to the words of the Rambam here. So the first part of the Rambam, when he says leida sheyesh sham motzi rishain, so what's the Rambam saying with that? Second, the words of the Rambam, leida sheyesh sham motzi rishain v'hu mamtzi kol nimtza. So the Rambam is telling you that the Eibishter is the motzi rishain, meaning it's a description of the maila, of the shleimus, of the fact that the Eibishter is motzi rishain, and the fact that everything that's created needs the Eibishter v'hu mamtzi kol nimtza. And then what is the Rambam adding when he says v'chol nimtzayim? What he's saying is that anything that's outside of the Eibishter's existence, they were created by him, and he creates them every moment, and the Eibishter does not need them at all. That's the addition of that v'chol nimtzayim loy nimtzu, right? What the Rambam is really saying is all the nimtzayim loy nimtzu, they don't have any existence. What is their existence? The Eibishter's true existence is the reason they exist, but they don't really have any existence. So when you have a mitzvah motzai, and then you have another mitzvah that's a created existence, a mitzvah motzai, a true existence, needs the world's existence. It's a different kind of existence altogether. How does Chassidus touch the words a mitzvah motzai? A mitzvah motzai means an existence that its existence stems from itself. It exists because it exists. It's a real existence. Anything that exists because of something that it causes it to be, meaning it could not be and it could be. It doesn't have to be. It's not a must that it should be. It's created and therefore it is. If it won't be created or if you'll destroy it, it won't be. Is that a real existence? No. It means the fact that it exists is based on circumstances, is based on a certain cause. Its existence doesn't stem from itself. So that's what Alter Rebbe says in Tanya, that existence has to be recreated every single moment. Mashenk in the Eibishter, which his existence stems from him, he taka exists, not based on anything. That's a mitzvah. So what the Barbanel is saying here is that this is what the Rambam is telling us, that the mitzvah is to believe in the Eibishter. That's hayoyse shalem. at the level of the true existence of the Eibishter. Okay, so now what comes out from this Abarbanel? That there are two different things in our Amunah or Yediyah and the Eibishter. There is what a person knows about the fact that the Eibishter exists before you come to the mitzvah of Yediyah Hashem. And then the Eibishter gives us a mitzvah of Yediyah Hashem, which is to take it to the next level. This Eibishter, that you know that he exists, now there's a mitzvah to know that his existence is Hayoser Shalem, the highest level of definition of existence. Okay, now,
where did Mami,
again,
where did Mami
Mamin,
into what the Abarbanel said?
Mamin Amunah.
Yeah. He said he's first, Mami, there's the Eibishter, and then the idea was different levels of perfection.
Correct. There's Amunah, the Rebbe here, actually, in this Sikha does not get into the distinction between Amunah versus Yediyah, faith versus knowledge. The Rebbe doesn't make that distinction. Either,
He says it's all Yediyah.
when a person, even before you do the mitzvah, it's already a Yediyah. But the Yediyah is in the existence of the Eibishter. Then there's the Yediyah in the Shleimus of the Eibishter. Okay, so what's greater? Before the mitzvah or the mitzvah? The Yediyah before the mitzvah or the Yediyah of the mitzvah? Which one's greater? The Yediyah of the mitzvah, no? That's what it would seem. Pashut. The Yediyah before the mitzvah, yeah, you know the Eibishter exists. What does he know? You have no description of what the mile of the Eibishter is. Then comes the mitzvah that you should learn and be misbainen and understand the greatness of who the Eibishter is.
So Yediyah
Okay.
is created by us, not by him. The first Yediyah is created
It's
by him.
it's a
The
greater
second Yediyah is
level.
greater than we know.
It's a greater definition and level of the Eibishter's existence. If you know just the very fact that the Eibishter exists, that could mean all kinds of things.
Yeah.
What does existence mean? So you're not really having a true awareness and knowledge of the Eibishter's existence. But when you know the Eibishter's existing in the shleimus of Amitis Imotze, the way that Rambam describes it, that's a much greater level of Yediyah.
Right.
Okay, so the Rebbe here in Sifei turns it all on its head. No, fakert. The Yediyah that you have before, that is the Shoirish. That's much greater. Then comes the mitzvah, which is actually a lower level. Let's see. Okay, so based on this Abarbanel, we can say Shehidiyas Sifei, got it? Shehidiyas Mitziyusis Barach Shalifnei Atzivoy, this that we know that the Eibishter exists before there's a mitzvah. Shekvar Yadainu Shehu Nimtza, the words of Abarbanel, Mekiven Shehi Asibeh Lahayidiyah Shemitziyusei Hi Yesa Shalom Cholu. Since this is the cause, this is the source of what then brings us to the next step, to know that the Eibishter is the greatest. Shahari Akim, the mitzvah Yediyah Zu, Hi Musuviv Moha Amunah Ba'alaka Mitzvah Mitzvah. First, you have the Amunah and the Eibishter that he exists, and then it's possible that there's a commander and you fulfill the mitzvahs. So the rule is a sibah. Whenever you have a sibah and a masuv, a cause, and then that brings to something else, an effect, that knowledge before the mitzvah is a source and is greater than the knowledge that comes afterwards in the mitzvah.
Like Chachma and Bina.
Maybe,
First part is like
maybe.
Chachma, where it's not in detail.
Okay.
And then the second one is where it goes into detail. So what's higher, Chachma or Bina?
Chachma.
That's it.
Okay, so here the Rebbe is going to take it
Much higher.
to a level much more than just Chachma and Bina.
I'm saying it's out.
Let's see.
It's not a mitzvah.
Basically, the point that we're going to learn here, that Rebbe is going to explain, the idea before the mitzvah is the idea that a Yid knows intuitively, essentially, that he has an atzmus. Every Yid,
It's like they were davening
exactly, like a little child that davens and doesn't ask questions. Who's the Eibishter? Daven to the Eibishter. Or the famous expression that Alter Rebbe says in Torah, Shem Shemayim Shogeg B'Fikoil, that people have it on their lips to say Baruch Hashem, Galep the Eibishter, and they're not making cheshbonis to understand more, they understand less who the Eibishter is. It's the essence of the Yid that knows that he's a Yid and he's connected to the essence of the Eibishter. That is the idea before the mitzvah. Then comes the idea of the mitzvah. Over here, you're speaking about the shleimus. What does the Abarbanel say? That the Eibishter is hayoser shalem. So you're speaking about the Eibishter, where you could define with this description of shleimus. When it comes to the essence of the Eibishter, what do you mean hayoser shalem? There's no description b'chlal. That's the point here. Let's see. The fact that the Eibishter is the greatest, and he does not rely on anything outside of him. And everything that exists outside of him relies on the Eibishter, who shleim shapi seichel. This is a description of the Eibishter as an existence which is expressed, which relates to our existence, and therefore we're using our seichel to give this description of a shleimus. The Eibishter has no way to be defined at all, God forbid. Including things that are must. It is no other way how to understand this. To take this very point that the Rebbe said here, when he gave to Sibbe and Mesuviv, that a Sibbe comes before a Mesuviv, a cause and effect. You can't have a cause be after the effect. A cause means that it's causing the effect. So if someone's going to tell you that the cause came after the effect, so he fell on his head. It doesn't make sense. Or the mashal that's brought is if someone would come and tell you that you have a father and a son, and the son came before the father. How does that mean? How is it possible that the son came before the father? There's a story from the Baal Shem Tov. Remembering that, there's a story from the Baal Shem Tov that where it says this, I think it was the Tzemach Tzedek. He once was walking and he sees an older fellow, and then a younger person walking with him, and all of a sudden he sees the older fellow is screaming at the older fellow, and then he hits him. He's wondering what's going on. This young little 25-year-old is hitting someone that's 75 years old. It's weird. So he approached him and asked, "What's it does? Why?" So he says, "No. I'm his father." What happened? He something, a certain sibbe, I forgot what it was, that he did, that he got a bracha from the Baal Shem Tov for Arichas Yomim. So I told the Baal Shem Tov, I'm going to have Arichas Yomim, I'm going to be this alt yid that can't move, that can't do anything. What's the tayelos of me living Arichas Yomim if I won't be able to do anything? An alt person and nursing home that's going to be a burden on my children, on my family. So Baal Shem Tov told him, I give the bracha that you're going to be as young and as fresh as you are today. So he had Arichas Yomim, and he always had his youth like a 25-year-old.
I hope he had the seichel of an older person.
Seichel grew, you're saying. He didn't remain immature in seichel. Akapanim. So the point is that I'm bringing the dogma that's brought. So someone's going to tell you there's a father, there's a son, and the father is Taka, the father of the son. But Afal Pikein, the son is before the father. It makes sense to say such a kind of thing. It's an impossibility. This is what's called nimnois. It's impossible. But by the Eibishter, any kind of rule, as Rebbe emphasizes here see it's underlined, mechuyavim, even things that must be this way, al pi seichel, but by the Eibishter, none of these rules exist at all. Why? Again?
Among the Rishon.
Amongst the concept of ninan noise. The Rebbe brings it here right now. Let's see. Kikol gidrei seichel, the entire concept, the way things have to be according to seichel, nivru mimeni yisbarach. All the rules, it's all created by the Eibishter. It's a created fact. It's not a fact. It's not a real fact. So if the Eibishter created all of these things that are defined in certain different ways, you can't say that Hashem is defined by them and limited by them. There's a well-known tshuva that the Rashba says, Nimnois means impossibilities. With Eibishter is nimna and nimnois. It's impossible to say that there's anything that's impossible. There's nothing that's impossible, God forbid. Okay, so therefore, what does this mean? So Harei, the Rebbe concludes, so the fact that we know the greatness and the level of the Eibishter's existence, shleimus, you're describing the Eibishter as an existence. And that existence is the most shleimusdige existence. That's where the Eibishter is mitzamtzim himself. And here now you could define in the world of seichel how the Eibishter is so great and perfect. But none of this expresses even a drop the real existence of the Eibishter. That's beyond any of the Gedarim according to seichel. So here the Rebbe doesn't really spell out, but the Rebbe sort of skips a step, because you could speak about the shleimus of the Eibishter that's out of Gidrei HaSeichel. Right? There's a level of shleimus according to Gidrei HaSeichel. It's one thing, which is what the Abarbanel speaks about. And then there's a level of shleimus which is beyond Gidrei HaSeichel. Right? So you have the level of the Eibishter's existence after Tzimtzum, which is related to our reality. And then you have the level of the Eibishter that's before Tzimtzum. That's not the essence of the Eibishter. Oh, it is Giluyim, expressions of who the Eibishter is, but all on his terms, not related to our reality. All right, so Valachas Kama Vakamisha Einzu Yediyah Klal Bat Smusi is Barach. But then you have the very essence of the Eibishter. Any level of Yediyah, which is Al Pi Seichel, does not at all mean that this is touching the essence of the Eibishter. She'eina Mugda Klal Bat Torah de Shleimus. The whole concept, the word Shleimus, is already not what the Eibishter is. Gam loy b'shleimus nailas b'yoser, including not the greatest shleimus that you could think of in any level whatsoever. So v'zehu mashamun b'mitzuyusi is barach shalefnei atzivoi. They believe that you have in the Eibishter before there's any mitzvah. He ashayrish v'asibbe la'yidish nitztavinu leidesh yeshem atzirish and cholo. This is the cause for then the mitzvah to know that the Eibishter is matzirish. The sibbe hilamayla m'mesuviv. When you have a sibbe, so then that's a cause. That's before. That's the knowledge that you have in the very essence of the Eibishter. That's much greater. It's a whole different thing. It's not even, you can't even say greater. It's a different, talking about the essence of the Eibishter that can't be described at all. Yeah, that's the opinion over here.
The cause and effect can only take it up to a certain point.
True. Right, the way the Rebbe puts it, a cause and effect. Okay, the Rebbe is proving it even al pi gidrei haseichel, but the emes, this is as is the Indian. Yeah. Okay, so there's an obvious question that comes up based on what the Rebbe is saying here. One second. There's an obvious question that comes up here. If this is the case, so then what's the point of the mitzvah? The mitzvah is just a yerida, a tzimtzum. Even before the mitzvah, you already know the Eibishter because you intuitively know the Eibishter in your essence. The yechidish benefesh of the yid recognizes the Eibishter in his essence. It says for us, me, I dive into it. Yeah. So what's the point of that? What's the if to that?
Can relate to him.
Okay. So it's for our benefit, you're saying. But a mitzvah is the rotzen atzmi of the Eibishter, which is not just for our sake. There is an aspect of mitzvahs which has taimim and a teyeles that relates to our mitzvahs, right? The mishpatim of mitzvahs, or the famous lashon of the medrash, shlonitna mitzvahs el tzaref ben esabrius. But a mitzvah is a truth of an expression of truth of who the Eibishter is, not related to our existence. So the mitzvah here is just relating it to us, bringing it down. It's a yerida from the real fact. The real fact of the Eibishter is before the mitzvah. Then you have the yerida. How could that be? Okay, so this is coming later in the Sikha. The Rebbe will explain. Okay, we'll just finish off with one order. There's a lot of orders here, as you see. We're going to do one order for today, order 13. Okay?
Yeah.
Page before. Yeah. So the Rebbe here points out that the pshat that he's saying in the Abar Benel is not the simple pshat of the Abar Benel. This is a chiddush. Because you look into the Abar Benel and the Tzemach Tzedek that quotes him. Here it seems the opposite of what we're saying here. When you believe in the Eibishter, and that's the mitzvah, what you know is you don't know anything. Now you understand the shleimus of the Eibishter. That's the real mitzvah. That's greater. So it's mashma. So the Rebbe explains it's not a contradiction. It depends on where you're speaking about. If he's speaking about the level of the Eibishter that is expressed, comes out from the source, any level of oir. So over here, you can start making a chiluk. There's the level of the Eibishter that we know about that's above our reality, and then there's the level of the Eibishter that relates to our reality. So what we know, bepashtos, is the Eibishter that relates to us. And then the mitzvah is to know the real shleimus of the Eibishter that's above that. But that's all in Giluyim. If you only know about the Eibishter's existence in general terms, before there's any details, you don't realize that how great the Eibishter's existence is. So you could be speaking about the fact that the Eibishter exists, that because of the Eibishter's existence, this table exists, this tree exists. So you're relating to the Eibishter on a very low level, perhaps. But then you avlafal pikein kivin shekol hageder the iluv afla hirak b'chinas hagiluyim. Anytime he's speaking about shleimus, iluy, hafla, all these terminologies is speaking about how awesome, great, incredible, huge the Eibishter is. That's all in giluyim. That's expressions. But then when you come to the very essence of the Eibishter, here it's all turned on its head. The fact that a Yid knows without asking any questions, without any explanations, but he just knows it as a fact. I'm a Yid and I'm connected to the Eibishter. And there's no description here. Is that a chesaron or a maila? It's a maila. This is the knowledge a Yid has in the very essence. And the Rebbe adds, where the Alter Rebbe says, it's not so usual in the Sikha for ayin. Usually it says ayin. Look well into the Torah where the Alter Rebbe says the famous word, as I mentioned before, Shem Shemayim Shoga B'fi Koil. That even Noshim Amiyot, it's all kinds of people that have very little knowledge, but they know intuitively that the Eibishter exists, and therefore they'll say Baruch Hashem and so on. That's the idea before the mitzvah. Okay, that's the Inyan for this week.
He said it's higher before the mitzvah.
Before the mitzvah is a level higher. It's the very essence of the Eibishter.
That's a question, or that's a...
No, it's a fact. It's a fact. It's not the Pashup Shad of the Abarbanel, but